Okay, so I've got just a slightly different tarp tent to give a demonstration on. It's going to be very similar to the other. We're going to start with a ridge line. And these trees, they just happen to be almost perfectly 8 foot apart. I'm going to come over here. Today I'm going to try more for a sunshade, so I'm going to come over here into a natural fork. Wrap this around. And I'm going to put my taut line hitch. This way I can lock this down a little bit better and pull tension. Now, one thing that's just a little kind of woodsman trick, you can actually tie a taut line hitch like this. This right here just happens to have an extra loop in it. This extra loop is called a reef. If, for example, I needed to untie this in a hurry, see, the taut line hitch still works exactly the same way. I can tighten this down, I can loosen it off. Like I said, I can tighten it down. If I need to untie this in a hurry, I can also just yank this and it's ready to come undone. That is called a reef, and some people call it a slippery hitch. A lot of Old West cowboys used to use it often whenever they'd tie their horses up if they needed to make a quick getaway. It's also something that's just real easy to tie. In general, I try to avoid tying them just because I don't want somebody to come by and accidentally grab the wrong rope and untie my entire shelter on me. So we have our taut line hitch here. We have this pulled tight. We got a couple of good, nice hiking staffs. Back in the old days, these hiking staffs of 6 foot tall, this used to be part of the Boy Scout uniform. Nowadays, people really like the trekking poles. There's good and bad points on both. I will probably make a video describing the good and bad points. But for now, we are going to say we came in here with two hiking partners that are going to build a shelter together, and each one had a staff amongst them. Okay, so we got all this excess rope here, and one of the things that I've kind of got an idea to do, I'm going to, on my shelter, I am basically going to take the short end and have it hanging off the back, and my long end and have it hanging off the front. So I want to go through one of my grommets here and feed it through. This is going to go over the ridge line. We'll tighten the ridge line up here in just a minute. So we run this through the grommet. And the back. And my other grommet here. Here, I want to tie just another real quick tension knot or a taut line hitch. So I can pull it tight. As you can see, this bottom one needs a little bit of tightening itself. From here, I can take as I come in here, I can now take this, hook my tent stake here, and come relatively straight down to make our back wall. Come over here, we can do the same. We can hook this right here, take it underneath to make our back wall. So using our walking stick, we come over here, and we don't really have a tie-off point or anything like that already here. There's several ways you can do it. This is just my method, but you can go through and you can tie your simple loop right through here, and we will be stretching this to the ground to provide some tension. But this right here, if you are not dealing with a high wind situation, this may do just fine. If you are dealing with a high wind situation, you may have to take this and wrap it back around here just like this in order to get it to hold up. Okay, coming through here, we can do the exact same thing. Right there, hook our loop, pull our excess through here. Then, right here, I'm again going to take this, make one wrap around in order to kind of help out in the wind situation. If it's extremely windy, we can also go through and tie it down to an actual, grommet. Or if we had a rock, we could even put the rock up on top here. But from here, I'm going to come down, take my stake. This is one of them rare areas where we don't have to worry too much about rocks. And I am going to tie my taut line hitch to where we can adjust our tension if need be. Nice and tight. And this is mostly a finished product. This is reminiscent of a Baker style tent. Not exactly, but very, very similar. You got a flat wall in the back, and you have kind of a sloped wall up on the top. It provides a nice amount of shade. It also provides a little bit of rain resistance and stuff. I wouldn't say it's too great in the wind, so to speak. You can make a few improvements to that. This is also using the 6-foot hiking staffs. If you did just happen to have hiking poles or trekking poles, then basically this would come out at about maybe half this height or so, and you could still make a fairly decent tent with that. This thing you can also, depending upon the weather conditions and all, sleep under very easily. But it's a very good sized tent. One of the big drawbacks of most of the tarp configurations is there is just not very much height or standing room. This one necessarily wouldn't have a huge amount of standing room, but as you can see, JJ is actually up on his knees, and he basically doesn't really have to worry too much about the top of the tent hitting him or anything like that. This is also good for just a starter shelter and stuff. You could build this as one wall to possibly like a latrine area or something along those lines. Another modification that can be made to this is basically I can go through and I can tie a knot. And the problem is these are nice smooth poles. I'm going to go through some of the modifications we can do with a hiking staff, and some of it is putting notches down this. And if I had a particular notch or something, I could actually tie what's called a clove hitch into one of those notches. And without the notch actually being in the pole, you just got to kind of use your imagination a little bit. But I can actually come over here and tie this just like that, and then back down, and then tie my taut line hitch. Okay, so by doing that, we actually lowered the front part of this. And keep in mind, this is the exact same tarp that we have been using for all the other tarp shelters. Yes, you did lose a little bit of the height here, but you did expand it just a little bit out here to where I wouldn't hesitate to say 2 easily, maybe even a third could even sleep under this configuration. Again, you had the two poles and we just lowered them down a little bit. One of the other benefits of doing it this particular method, sometimes people will have items up on top of their staff, like a little staff topper or something, and this configuration doesn't really mess with that. Otherwise, you can go and you can hang a uniform, you can hang a hat, you could even hang gear or a backpack or something like that. It all depends on basically kind of your weather conditions and how tight you make the drawstrings. If we had 4 hiking poles, 4 people hiking, and we need to just stop just for a nice shady area, enjoy a trail lunch, 4 people could fit under this very easily. This could provide a little bit of a rain shelter, but it's, like I said, predominantly designed for sun and nice fair conditions. Wind, yeah, it would be a little tough to erect this in the wind, but it can be done. You would just need a lot more anchoring supports. But this particular configuration is not exactly rain friendly because it would run to the middle. You can easily lower the basically the connection points on the hiking staffs, and by lowering them you could still leave enough space for 4 people underneath there, but you could also shed the rain in the proper direction. Okay, so this right here is just another slight variation. Difference is we have lowered one corner of this and we have left the other 2 at the same level, and the opposite corner up has been moved a little higher. This basically makes it look like one of the plow point configurations, and this also would help shed the rain off much better to a single point going downhill.